Today is the day that you learn to let go of your limitations. Today is the day, if you choose, to wake up on a spiritual level, to step back, and to learn the skill of forgiveness. The meanings that we give to life can come either from a direct experience of life, which is called aliveness, or they can come from our past, from our minds. There's always a fight between what's really happening in life and what does our ego want to interpret is happening in life. The world of actuality, the world that's out there, in truth is meant to be totally safe, supportive, loving, and nurturing. Now, it's kind of hard to tell that in the world today, isn't it? Look at the way the world functions, and it doesn't look very safe, supportive, loving, and nurturing. Why do you suppose that is? Is it possible that it's that way because we have buried so much threat and so much anger and so much fight within our minds that we project that threat and fight and anger out into the world? And as we sow, we reap. As we measure our illusion, the world of effect measures it back to us. The fact is, when we choose to take responsibility, the world can change, but not before then. You are a co-creator of your life. When you learn to let go of the mind energies that don't belong in your system, you have the opportunity to start to change the directions that you send to life over the psychic megaphone. And it will appear miraculous. Just like you recall the example we used in the first segment of the workshop of the fellow who came in as the primitive was trying to move the bottle. Gee, they simply went back and click. Moved the bottle on the table that the camera was trained on rather than the one on the screen. Are you still trying to cut holes in the wall and move pieces of the wall and trying to get things on the screen to change? Are we still as a species that primitive that we haven't recognized or we laugh at one who says, wait a minute, there's another level of things happening here? You are a creative being. And when you recognize that and own that, you will be able to take responsibility for everything that happens in your life. Now, that doesn't mean you have to do it alone. Remember, there is one in you who's much greater than you are, and you can join with that power consciously rather than through your past, and stop directing that power to create the negativities and start to create harmony and a positive, constructive flow in your life. That's what we're here to learn how to do. We're here to learn to be conscious co-creators. You'll hear the statement made in the book of Revelations. There's a really interesting statement. And again, when the process of overcoming was talked about, it was overcoming the carnal body and the carnal mind. And it said, to he that overcomes, he will sit on the right hand of the Father. Now remember, the Father was a word that represented the creative power, and the place where we connected was within, right? Now, a lot of people are still waiting to fly off into the sky and sit in the right hand of a courtroom with this fellow with a white beard. And that wasn't what was meant. The Eastern languages are very right-brained. They're very figurative. They're not literal languages like our Western left-brain languages. They're not linear. And if you go back into what it meant to sit on the right hand, if you went into the court of a king and you were allowed to sit on the right-hand side of the king, you were in a seat of power. You could say, King, this is what I want, and you'd get it. So when we overcome all of the directives that have been molded into our minds from the past, we have an opportunity to wake up and have conscious mind energy input into the heart level. And remember, as a person thinketh in their heart, take care of the heart or the unconscious, for out of it are the issues of life. Now, most people, when they look at what's happening in their lives, will say, no, I've never thought that kind of stuff. And that's why we call it unconscious, because most people aren't conscious of having thought that kind of stuff. It is unconscious. How do you tell if it's been denied and if it's been suppressed that you're holding something that's less than love? It's going to show up in your life. The master teacher said it very clearly. He said, by their fruits you will know them. You'll know by the result you're producing. If there's a result that you're producing in your life that's less than love, then there's a part of your mind that holds mind energy that is less than your highest and best. It's a signal to let go of the mind energy. The signal comes from out there because blockage of personal error has made it invisible within you. And it's not until we wake up and start to learn to let loose of that mind energy that we can really be in the seat of power. That we can really consciously, and this doesn't mean power in the sense of, I did it all. It means power in the sense of a connectedness with something that functions within the whole system. A part of us is connected with the whole system. Again, Carl Jung's collective unconscious, Einstein's unified field. It didn't matter which language they spoke of it. They all spoke of it. The theologians talked about the Holy Spirit. The Holy Spirit isn't something mystical or religious. If I could literally alter the vibratory rate at which my eye receives information and energies, if I could step it up into a higher vibratory realm, just like if I could step up into the audio frequency or the radio frequency, I could hear the radio station without a radio. If I could step my vibratory receiver called the eye up another level, I would literally be able to see the energy that we are all a part of. And we'd come to realize, each of us, that we can't remove ourselves from that energy. We are directly interconnected with everyone. And the fact is, even though we may physically remove ourselves from a situation, relationships never end. Because there's always an interaction, an interconnection between that spirit of wholeness, that Holy Spirit, that collective unconscious, that unified field, that Father within, whatever words you want to use. That the connection with everyone is always there. So rather than pretend the relationship's over and hold on to the mind energy, even if you forgive them, what happens if you forgive them in the ego sense of forgiving? Okay, I'll let you off the hook for the terrible thing you did. What are you holding in your mind? You're holding the mind energy that they did it, right? And by forgiving them, you just amplified, you just resonated the mind energy one more time. What's that mean? You just sent the call out over the psychic megaphone one more time. That quality of forgiveness reinforces the errors and creates more of them. Because when we focus into something, we set up exactly what we're focused on. The master teacher said it in this form. He said, let thine eye be single, and thy body will be filled with light. And what does that mean? Thine eye single means let your creative focus be on one piece of mind energy to the exclusion of all others. And that mind energy is going to solidify. It's going to happen in the world of light. If you ask the scientist, he'll tell you that matter is light energy solidified. So the singular focus allows it or sets it up in the world of matter, in the world of solidified light energy. Now the ego plays the game of, I know exactly what I don't want. And I'm going to keep an eye on it to make sure it doesn't get me. And now that my eye is single, what happens? It happens to me one more time. And the more often I forgive it in the ego sense of forgiving, the more I'm going to see of it. When I truly forgive it in the spiritual sense of forgiving, I go to my spiritual nature. I no longer lie asleep in Adam in the red clay and its past, but I wake up and I reach in with that spiritual skill and I remove, I cancel, I let loose, I untie the energies that don't belong there. That's the essence of the true healing process, be that healing physical, mental, emotional, or spiritual. The skill of forgiveness is the key. The ego creates out of avoidance. To create out of avoidance, you have to focus in to what it is you don't want. And that focus is how we set it up. How many times have you entered into a relationship And what you did first thing, I mean, you knew what could happen in relationships. You knew what the potential was, right? And so you read the Riot Act. This is what I will not put up with. And 6 months later, what were you living with? Exactly that, right? Why? Because you're a creative being. When you start to focus into what it is you do want, rather than what it is you don't want, that's when you have a chance to wake up to who you are. Probably one of the greatest atrocities that we do to children is that we force them to split their minds. We force them to function in two worlds. When they're small, they live in the plane of what's called vibration, of energy. They know everything that's going on around them all the time. And what we do is we continuously give them directions that tells them what it is that we don't want them to do. How often do we phrase to our children, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that? How often to our spouses do we phrase, don't do this, don't do that, don't do that? How often to our bosses, to our friends? And isn't it interesting? They end up doing it. Why? Well, just stop and think about it. It's really simple when you understand that the mind operates by the law of resonance. What happens when I say don't think about the color of your car? That's what I fire off in your brain cell structure, and that's what tends to direct you. I remember working with a fellow who went through some pretty heavy-duty experiences as a kid and in young adulthood. Ended up spending 18 years in the penitentiary, had been stabbed twice, shot once, is presently out doing this work. During the process of our work, one of the things he brought into a personal session that we were in was his baby book. And his mother had penciled into the baby book at the 5-month stage that this kid got his first whipping today. He wouldn't leave the ashtray alone. Now, here's a little kid who's starting to move around and see things, kind of dancing around the table. He's excited about everything. And he's over here, and he spots the ashtray down at the end at about probably the same time Mom did, right? And so what does he do? Well, he spies it. Mom spies it. And Mom says, don't touch the ashtray. Now, kids want to please us as adults. They want to do what they're asked to do. What did the little kid hear in his brain cell structure? Touch the ashtray. Now, you know that little glint that these little kids get in their eye when you know they're going to defy you? That's not defying. That's excitement. I've got a chance to please. Here I go. And off they go to do it. They're alive. They want to please. And as he got closer, of course, the command became louder. Don't touch the ashtray. And then just as he got to it, he got the final command. And what was it? Don't break the... Crash. He'd done it. And he turned to get his reward. Remember the impish look? It was excitement. And what did he get instead? For following the directives he was given, he got beaten. How insane can we be? Now, that's not insane in the sense of intention. It's not because that's how we want to do it. It's because we don't know any better. How much fear, how much upset, how much anger, how much violence resides in every being simply because of that kind of experience throughout childhood. And then why do we turn around and raise our own children the same way? Until we wake up and get clear and become consistent with ourselves, we're going to continuously be in a state of creating out of avoidance, which means setting up exactly what it is that we don't want. And it's time for us to wake up to who we are and start to function out of a different state. The fact is, the world of actuality is supported by every energy that we hold. And that's why it seems so real and so solid, even though scientifically we can look right through it and see it's just energy organized. And with forgiveness, each one of us that will choose to let loose of the mind energy that supports a destructive actuality will weaken the structure of that actuality. And when we hit a critical mass, when enough people will make the switch, that's when there's going to be a switch in the twinkling of an eye. In the meantime, we'll tend to continue projecting. And it's not until we see how that function of projection works. How do you tell when you're projecting on someone? After all, your own denied mind energy is invisible to you. There's one direct correlation, one thing that will cue us in and signal us that we're suppressing something. And that is, we hold a judgment about another being. Whenever we hold a judgment about someone else, that means that there's an energy within ourselves which we have denied and suppressed. And I'd like to demonstrate how that operates. The fact is that there are two types of relationships in the world. One of those relationships is called a special relationship. When we form a special relationship with someone, we see them as the source of what's going on within us. And it's not until we recognize and reconnect with our inner source by taking responsibility that we can undo the mind energy that directs that experience. So this special relationship is a relationship that separates us, that removes us from our connection and keeps us locked into them. Now, the original meaning of the word hell, and a special relationship is a one-way ticket to hell. The original meaning of the word hell was separation from your source. When you focus out there and see someone else as the source of what happens in your life, you're instantly disconnected and therefore in the condition that was called hell. And then there's the alternative to that. Many people would say, well, gee, if I can't have special relationships, if I can't be close to anyone, what can I be? Well, the alternative is called the holy relationship. And the holy relationship is the relationship in which we choose to learn forgiveness. It's the relationship that supports us being connected with our source rather than focused out there in them. And I'd like to kind of do a little demonstration of how that works. Would you come up and help me to do that? Thank you. What I'd like you to do, Susan, is I'd like you to just stand right over about here. Okay, right there. You can come in a little closer. And I'm going to stand over here, and let's imagine that you and I are in a relationship. And in our relationship, we create a problem. Now, you recall the little diagram I put on the board earlier? It looked like a two-door igloo or someone peeking over a table. And you recall that the meaning that you saw came from your past and your brain cell structure, right? Now, let's think about that in the context of this relationship. Susan and I create a problem. Now, I look out upon the problem, and much in the way that the lines on the chalkboard were a framework upon which you projected whatever meaning you held in your brain cell structure, this framework elicits a meaning from me, as this framework elicits a meaning from Susan. Now, as I look out, and in looking out, gee, I can see the problem very clearly, and I can see Susan very clearly. I can't see much of myself, can I? So as I look out, I see the problem, and I see Susan, and it's pretty obvious to me whose problem it is, isn't it? Of course, at the same time, as Susan looks out, it's pretty obvious to her whose problem it is, isn't it? What is Susan seeing projected on this framework? But the meaning that it elicits, that this framework resonates or elicits from her brain cell structure, and I'm seeing the one that it resonates from mine. And I say to Susan, you know, Susan, you've really got a problem here, and you better do something about it, and I know what she needs to do, don't I? Now let's imagine that I ask Susan to change. Susan, what I'd like, now, just sort of play along with me. I know this isn't your nature, Susan, but let's imagine that you're going to agree to assume full responsibility for this problem. And so I'm going to instruct you as to what to do. And here's what you should do, Susan. You should just do this, okay? Now, there we go. Now, this will fix the problem, seeing as how you did it, right? And I go, am I ever glad she changed? And then I kind of start to catch a glimpse, and Susan, I thought you were going to change and fix this problem. What's going on with you? And how many times have we done exactly what we were asked to do? And then somebody wanted to beat us up again because the problem remained. And so Susan says, oh, no, I'm sorry, I'll fix it, I'll change, tell me what to do. And so I say, okay, no, not yet, no. Here's what you need to do now. Now this I know will fix the problem. Whew, it's nice to have this problem taken care of now, isn't it? Wait a minute. Susan, I thought... How long can we go on with this? Can Susan do anything I ask her that will change what's going on in my brain cell structure? Oh, she might stop doing the specific thing that resonates that for a little while, and I say, oh, good, it's fixed. It's not going to take long before she says the wrong word or gives me the look, and it's going to happen again. So what do I decide to do? Well, if you're not going to change, get out. And I get rid of her. Go. Whew. And of course, the problem disappears back into the unconscious because there's nothing there to resonate it. So I decide, well, now what I really need is a really good relationship. How about, would you like to form a relationship with me? Come on. And so we form this relationship, and it's wonderful, and it's nice, and it's great. And I'm still able to suppress. Of course, you know, new love and all that kind of stuff, you can sort of keep a lot of things hidden, right? But after a while, she starts to get into my file on relationships, and the old problem that I've learned to suppress so well, especially since I got rid of her, resonates a little stronger, doesn't it? And it resonates a little stronger, and soon she starts to say just the right words. And now, of course, I'm smart now. I catch on fast that she's got a real problem. And before long, I say, hit the road. Go. I've had enough of those kind of women. But now I'm ready for a really good relationship. And on we go. Before long, SSDD, same stuff, different day, different person, out. And I can go on and on and on. And where does it get me? Unless I'm willing to take responsibility for what it is I see in the world and learn to bring it forward to the altar and alter it, I'm stuck. There's nothing I can do about it. Fortunately, there is life after pain. Fortunately, if we're willing to take responsibility and learn the skill of forgiveness, we can learn to let loose of the mind energies with which we've set these situations up. And so I can ask Susan to come back and join me. And now, instead of the special relationship that keeps us separated, I decide that I'm going to work in a different fashion, and I'm going to form what's called the holy relationship. Now, what it takes to form a holy relationship is a commitment and a decision to learn forgiveness. That's the essence of the mind change that happens that will transform every special relationship into a holy relationship. And so, instead of this problem separating us, what I'm going to start to do is work toward a holy relationship with Susan. Now, when she resonates one of my old problems, my old defense mechanisms, whether it's fear or anger or attack or run and hide in the corner, start to come forward, and I tend to do it. Take it out on her or whatever, run and hide, whatever the defense mechanism is. So I make a predetermination now when I enter into a holy relationship to function differently within that relationship. And so when my ego comes up and counsels me to go into my old defenses, I act differently. And the first step is, rather than being separated by the situation and each contributing mind energy that holds it in place, I start off by walking over here and I say, gee, Susan, look what we've created. It's a real dandy, isn't it? Now, I could wring your neck for what you've done to me here. However, I'm starting to learn that if I'm the one that's feeling it, it's a result of a mind energy held in my field, and it's not you at all. But because it's invisible, I need to have somewhere to project it. The only ones that can access our most deeply suppressed mind energy are the people that love us most. And that means that we tend to create the most trauma and drama with those people. And so the opportunity for the holy relationship is the opportunity to say, Susan, I'm starting to learn that what I'm seeing is mine, and I'm going to work my best to learn to forgive it. I may project on you sometimes, but what I'd like to do when I'm getting into some form of upset, if you would, is help me to learn that it's mine. Now I'm going to make a commitment, and I promise to treat you lovingly and gently and with respect. And I'm going to do that in thought, in word, and in action. And whether I'm in your presence or out of it, that's what I'm going to do. And if anything less than that comes up in this relationship, I'm going to take 100% responsibility for it, and I'm going to learn as quickly as I can to let go of it. Will you join me with me in that?
Sounds like a good idea.
And so now, rather than projecting on her continuously, when I start to project, I ask Susan for support and assistance in healing what I need to heal. And that's the essence of the holy relationship. That's the essence of the opportunity to learn to forgive. And so now the master softener of trauma, of our suppressed trauma, is love. Now Susan can stay in a loving space when I start to bring up what I need to heal. And of course, vice versa. I'll stay in a loving space when she brings up what she needs to heal. Now it takes a little practice, and it doesn't happen perfectly at first, but it's a powerful way to heal yourself. And that's the essence of the holy relationship. And I thank you.
Thank you, too.
A measure of your self-esteem is the number of holy relationships that you will allow yourself. I invite each of you to form at least one holy relationship in your life. And what I would like to do, and one of my personal goals, is to form a holy relationship with every being on the planet. And I would like to do that now by making a commitment to you.
I promise to trust you enough to treat you lovingly, gently, and with respect in my thoughts, words, and actions, whether in your presence or not. In every interaction, I will surrender to love, our true nature. Being connected to my source and my relationship with you will always be more important than any issue. If anything unlike love comes up, I will hold this in my heart as we each experience, speak, and are responsible for our realities. I will be there for and with you, keep communication open, and keep love conscious, active, and present as we heal. Welcome. To those who are watching this video, you're going to find that my tie has changed and the set's changed a little bit. And what we're doing is that the Why Is This Happening to Me Again forgiveness worksheet has evolved some since the video was originally made. So we're redoing this 4th hour, and so it was a little difficult to get the same set together, and here we are ready to get into the process of forgiveness. And the workshop and the worksheet having evolved and changed, this will give the new pieces of information that were not contained in the original worksheet. Our question, of course, becomes, how does the inner process of forgiveness work, and what specifically is forgiveness? Well, we've talked about to some degree, but I just want to re-clarify the idea of forgiveness. And in the context of this worksheet, what does it mean? Literally in the Aramaic language, the word forgive means to cancel, to let loose, or to untie. Now, what is it that we need to cancel? What is it we need to let loose?